Jonesy Brainiacs, welcome to the Johnson Kendra Video Hour.
But it's not an hour. Today
Well,
might be
yeah,
close.
this one might be, so buckle your chin straps, folks. Here we go.
Alright, so this very first slide that we're going to do, you actually don't need to write any of this down, but I do want you to listen to the explanation. So hopefully you remember that the graph of a parabola, or of an x squared, is a parabola, and it would look like this. And then in 6, 7, we started talking about inverses. And if you were to find the inverse of y equals x squared, it would actually be plus and minus the square root of x. And when you do that for a graph, you would switch all of the x's and the y's. So you end up with that sideways parabola. So we should know that already. But when we look at the green parabola, is that thing a function? How do we know?
You can do the vertical line test.
Does it pass the vertical line
It
test?
surely does.
This one is. Okay, what about this?
Uh-oh.
Definitely
Not.
fun. Kachan. Alright, so what we're going to do today is restrict the domain so that when we take the inverse, it will be a function. So what we're going to do is do our parabola, but we're only going to use positive x's. So when you do that, it just makes a half a parabola.
Oh.
And that means when we flip it, there's no more plus or minus, and it's half of a sideways parabola.
Interesting.
So this is going to be the shape that we're working with.
All right. So
Some things that are really important. This needs to be a dot. It is not an arrow. It doesn't go on forever. This end does need to be an arrow.
it goes forever.
Okay.
Because it has to be positive if it's a square root.
All right. So now you want to start taking some of these notes. Get some of this stuff copied down.
All right, this information here is a lot like what we did with parabolas. Some of the same things occur. For instance, the A in the front will stretch or compress the graph. And remember, if it's a negative, it'll flip it over. The H under the radical is going to move it right or left. And remember, it's opposite of what you think. The negative h goes left, but if it's a negative h, it'll actually be a plus sign.
Right.
So you got to think, plus sign goes left, minus sign goes right.
Good.
All right, and then the K, which probably stands for Kendra, really not sure, but you know, they like to include me in their math books. Moves the graph up or down. Plus K goes up, negative K goes down.
So we've done a lot of H and K stuff already.
Right. All right, so remember, when we're drawing graphs, we're going to make a shape chart first. Now, we just learned that the square root of x is going to look kind of like that. It starts at 0, 0, and then kind of curves up to the right. And then we shift it according to h and k. All right, let's try some. Okay, so the graph, here's our shape. Right here.
So the A is 1 because there isn't anything out there.
Right, there's
okay.
a 1 there, so that's not going to change. And then this is the K, so it's going to mean it's going to shift up.
So we got to make a T-chart for that root x thing.
Right. Now, the big thing you got to remember for root x is because it is a square root, let's pick numbers that are perfect squares.
0.
Like 0,
1.
1,
4.
4,
Maybe 9.
9, yes. So the square root of 0 is 0, square root of 1 is 1, square root of 4 is 2, square root of 9 is 3. So now we plot those. 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, or 4, 2, and 9, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 3. So you can see that it goes that way. Now, the plus 2, we have to shift everything up 2. So we just take our dots and turn them into little X's, and we're going to move them up 2. So that was a
4, 2.
4, 2, so now that's right here and right here. So our new graph, whoops, that's off a little bit. Our new graph looks kind of like that.
All right.
Okay, let's go to the next one. All right, here's another one.
Now wait a minute. That's got the same A as before, so couldn't we just use the same chart you just made?
one big difference is this is outside the radical, this is inside the radical. So that is h. This is an h. So what did we say? So if h is a minus, it's going to go to the right. So this whole thing is going to go to the right. So we have our same points as before. Make another T-chart. We still have 0, 1, 4, and 9.
Still going to be 0, 1, 2, 3.
So let's put those in real quick. 1, 4, 2, 9.
The whole thing is 10.
Oh,
so.
okay. So there's our original. And then we need to move it to the right too. So all of these move to the right too. So this will be over, 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 and over.
If we could do the, the final answer graph without plotting that original, do you think that's okay?
It's okay with me.
All right, cool. Well, we're going to skip this one to save some time. Let's go on to the last one with some funky stuff.
Okay, so we have upside down because of the negative. And we have a 2 in front, which is either going to compress or stretch it. So we're going to have to do a shape or a T-chart again. This time I'm actually going to use the T-chart for all my points. I'm not going to graph the original because we all know what that looks like. We can just jump right in and use those same 4 points. But this time I'm going to plug them in here and then end up multiplying them by -2. So 0 puts in a 0, 0 times -2 is still 0. Put a 1 in, 1 times -2. Put a 4 in, that's 2, 2 times -2. Put a 9 in, that's 3, 3 times -2. Now let's plot these. So 0, 0, 1, -2, 4, -4, and 9, -6.
Okay, and we don't have to shift left or right or up or down because there's no H or K.
Right.
So just the shape chart is the answer.
Yep.
Awesome.
Be done there. So if it just has A, the T-chart is the way to go.
All right, so let's take that and we're going to put them all together here. So this is
it's got lots of stuff going on.
Right. So here are some reminders of your steps. You're going to make your shape chart. This is the same one Mrs. Kendall just did, where we would make a shape chart for that. She plugged in 0, got 0. She plugged in 1, she got -2, 2, -4, 9, -6. That's what we did on the last page.
4.
Thank you.
All right.
Not a 2. All right, that looks like this. Okay, but that is not our final answer this time. You could put it on there if you wanted to, but we got to do some other things. We have a +1 inside. So that means that we are really going to the left 1, and then this guy on the outside means that we're going down 3. So take each of the dots that we created and move it left 1 and down 3. And that's our answer.
Yep, and don't extend the left side.
Right.
That's a starting point. Nice.
Half parabola is what we're shooting for.
Very good.
Okay, moving on. Cube roots. So you can, again, pause. You do not need to write this down. Just going to show you, in general, if we were to sketch something that is x to the 3rd power, we end up with this. My tiny little graph. Kind of like a little squiggle.
Little S.
Yep, so when you do the inverse of that, the inverse is cube root of x.
Yep.
So on the square roots, we were plugging in perfect squares, and on the cube roots, we're going to plug in perfect cubes. And when we did our squares, we only picked positives because you can only take the square root of a positive.
Oh.
But can you take a cube root of a negative?
Sure.
So the numbers you're going to pick for your T-charts for your cube roots should be -8, -1, 0, 1, and 8. And when you plug those into the cube root, you will get -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2.
Huh.
And that looks like this.
So it turns it sideways and kind of flips it too.
Yeah, I do have a word
Interesting.
I have a word of warning. Some people like to only use like 3 points. So they'll put this one, and this one. And then look what that makes.
It's like a straight line.
Right, so careful.
Always choose 5 points.
Yep, 5 points for this. All right, so the translating stuff is the same. only it's a cube root instead. So your a stretches or compresses, negative flips it over. H, remember when you see a positive h, that really means a minus inside. Whoops. So when you see plus h under the radical, remember it's going left and minus goes to the right. That's the backwards one. And then k is straightforward, that Kendro, up,
That's right.
plus.
Up and up.
All right. How about I do one and you do one?
Sounds good.
Okay. So we got it all in here right away.
Wow, lots of stuff going on.
Okay, so let's make a shape chart for y equals 2 cube root x. And it's a cube root, so we're going to make a t-chart using negative 8, negative 1, 0, 1, and 8. Plugging it into the cube root first, and then multiply by the 2. So cube root of negative 8 is negative 2. Multiply by negative 2, we get negative 4. Cube root of negative 1 is negative 1, and we'll get negative 2. This will be a 2 and a 4.
All right.
That would look like this.
Boy, you're pretty fast with those.
Thanks.
So putting those, well, we don't want to connect those. Well, you can, I guess, but
Yeah, that would be our original.
yeah. But look how much taller it is because of that 2 in the front.
Stretch.
It's stretched.
Okay, what about these guys? That's an H because it's underneath.
Go left. It's
Go
backwards.
left and down. So I'm going to take each dot and go left 2 and down 2. Left 2 and down 2. Yeah, that was right.
Mm-hmm.
Left 2 and down 2. That's my final answer.
So, very good.
Okay, you're up, Kendro.
Oh boy, I'm kind of nervous. All right, let's take our shape chart. We're going to use that.
Ooh, you got a negative.
Ooh, I must be special. All right, I'm going to make a little room here. So we'll do our t-chart again. X and Y. So we're still going to choose negative 8, negative 1, 0, 1, and 8. Negative 8, cube root of that is negative 2 times negative 3 is 6. Negative 1, cube root is negative 1 times negative 3 is 3. We get 0. Then we have negative 3 and negative 6. All right, so plotting those. So negative 8, negative 6. Oh, positive 6. Negative 8 and up 6 is there. Negative 1 and 3, 0, 0. 1, negative 3, and 8, negative 6.
So that's like backwards from what we did before.
Because of the negative.
Okay.
Oops, I missed that dot. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So maybe I'll hit it. All right, now we have to move which way?
That's going right.
Correct. And this is
Up.
up. All right, so right 1 and up 2. So right 1, up 2. Right 1, up 2. 2. And there. So that's our final. Darn, I keep missing that one.
I notice you put arrows on both ends. That's good because on the square root it's not like that.
Right. Yep. Square root has to be positive, so it has a stop it.
All right, last topic. You are going to see a few of these on your assignment. Sometimes they will throw something underneath the square root or the cube root. And then our graphing steps that we've talked about so far, and it's not going to be on number 31. It's in the 30s somewhere. So my hint here is to factor out the greatest common factor and then take the square root or the cube root so that it turns into an a value. So if you look underneath, just focus on these two terms, 16x and 32. What's common in both of those?
16.
So we want to change that to 16 parentheses x plus 2. That is what is underneath of there.
So now we can take the 16 out. We
Right.
couldn't before because it was attached to the 32, but now it's multiplication. We could split it up.
So what is the square root of 16?
4.
I'm going to multiply by the negative 1 out there. So negative 4 root x plus 2. I do believe your book also asks you to describe what happens. So this is a reflection because of the negative, and it's a stretch by a factor of 4, and then a translation to the left.
To the left. Let me try the next one.
Okay.
Okay, we have cube root of 27 and x. I'm going to split it into two parts. Cube root of 27 and the cube root of x. Cube root of 27 we do know as 3, and then cube root of x. So we have a
Scratch.
stretch of 3, and then the rest is just a normal.
Yeah, there's no left or right or up or down because there's no K.
Yep, so no translation on that one.
Cool.
All right. Well, hope you can translate all of that into some A+ grades.